So in the beginning, I mean, we were, Tiffany and I, and by the way, she works across town, so she wasn't able to get here today. But
Totally fine.
we were
Yeah.
in a place where, as a couple, we had gotten out of debt. We'd actually gotten out of debt twice. The first time we were just out of debt, and then I got in a car accident and had to buy a new car. So it was kind of like, there's that.
Yeah. Of course.
But we were in a
Life
place where
happens.
we were both together making more money than we've ever made together, but I just didn't feel like we were really progressing. Our debt was paid for the most part, and we were everything was caught up and paid up, but we weren't really, other than like a 401k I had and a teacher's pension she had for the state of Texas. Like we didn't have a lot of retirement, and I knew I didn't know a lot of things. I knew that we needed to be we needed to have Ross. I know we needed to be paying extra on the house. I knew we needed to be making a few other things, doing a few other things that we were doing. I just didn't know exactly how to get there. Like I didn't know the exact steps to take and the map, kind of like your roadmap you show, so to speak.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I knew that there were things we were missing, and I just wasn't quite sure what they were or where to start. And then enter, I don't know how I saw you on Instagram, but it was, I'm sure I clicked on a few finance things here or there or stock tips or so. I don't know what I clicked on, but all of a sudden I start seeing this budget dog guy and everything you said. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, and oh, that's pretty cool. And I think the thing I like the most is you weren't like selling something. It wasn't just like sell, buy this, get rich quick, stock tips, all that kind of junk you
That
see a
happens a
lot.
lot on Instagram.
Yeah, so that's kind of what drew me to you. I think originally was like, all right, this guy's not trying to stuff stock tips down my throat. And so I followed you for a few months. And I remember we were at my mom's house in Florida and we were sitting on the beach and I was talking to her and I'm like, hey, look, like we're in this position where we need to be doing things a little differently. And of course, expenses were always kind of a hot topic. Tiffany absolutely hates everything to do with money. She knows that she needs to make it and we need to pay, bills, and that's about it. So we had no budget, together as a couple. It was just kind of a lot of flying by the seat of your pants. And even though we probably weren't in that bad of a situation, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And I knew we could have been in a better place. So we were in Florida. I'd followed you for a few months, and I'm like, hey, I want to do this. And then she's like, well, how much is it going to cost? And I told her, and I'm like, look, we can get it from here because we did have a little bit of emergency, not a lot, but we had some emergency. I was like, I can get it from here. I can get it from here. Like, we're not going to put it on a credit card. Like, we're going to pay for it. And I said, but I need you to agree that you're going to buy into this. Like, there's going to be work involved and there's going to be some reading and some learning. And I still didn't really understand what Budget Dog was at the time. But I was like, I a little bit of a leap of faith. But, she agreed. And I said, I don't want to hear, you don't want to do it because it's a Wednesday night and
Yeah.
we got something we need to do. And she agreed. So that's kind of what got us to the Budget Dog jump off place.
What made her agree to that? Like that's a big commitment. She hates money. She's never even talked about it. Spouse issues are very, very prevalent. What was that like aha moment, or what was that thing you said to her? They're like, okay, I will commit to this.
Sold her on retirement. Honestly, I sold her on retirement. And I said, look, we both work really hard and we have worked really hard and we still have some time to go. I just turned 39 and she's 46. So we still have a little time to work. And I said, I don't think we're doing everything we can. And I don't want to work for the rest of my life. Like, I don't. We work too hard for that. So I just said, there's some things that we could be doing that I don't really know the full breadth of. And I'll be honest, I was on the way back from Florida. I had my phone. I was about to drop 3 grand on VT Sacks. Like, and I was like, do I do that or do I just wait? And I was like, Aaron,
Yeah.
just wait, dude. Like, wait till you get home. And then we signed up for Budget Dog the next week. And I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, it was retirement. And I sold her on, hey, we need to do more. We're not doing enough. And and honestly, I blame my parents too. I said, I'm not going to end up like my parents where they're a few years away from retirement and they think they're going to be okay. Like they
Yeah, it's
might
not a good
be.
feeling, man. Whew,
Yeah.
scares me. Have they been able to pick up on things that you've said for that retirement?
Um, yes. And honestly, it's cool because it's gotten to where, and my dad is not an accountant, but his degree is in accounting. So he
Yep.
does everything accountants do as far as count beans. He just isn't an accountant. So he's fine. My
Yeah.
parents are divorced. My dad is fine. But my mom, it's opened the door for us to have some conversations of like, hey, are you talking to, at least a financial advisor? Are you talking to someone who can point you in the right direction? Because we're doing this and you're getting really close. So, I don't want you to be, all of a sudden look up and you're 75 and you're out of money. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
100%. That's the thing I fear for most people is like they don't know if they're good. And then it's like a social security gamble. It's like, is social security going to be there? And if it's not, I don't know if I'd actually be good. And then you age, you become you become more reliant on your money versus a job, active income. But then you might have to go back. And like, that's always my biggest fear for so many older folks that don't know about retirement. I'm like, you might want to push a few more years if you can, because you don't want the reverse to happen to where you retire too early, you have to go back to work at 75, 80, and you can't even do anything. And then that becomes a disability thing, and that becomes a government assistant. You hate to see it, man, but it happens a lot more often than people think. Um, that's huge, man. It's really big. And obviously the biggest thing with you guys, it sounded like you had everything. Like you had the ability, but like were you maximizing your potential? And I think that's where you really benefited the most. What were some of the biggest jumps that you made since joining?
let's see.
I know that one post you were like, "Hey, this is the first paycheck. Everything just did its thing,"
Yeah,
and
that
I
was
was hyped
cool.
up. I talk about that all the time. I love that
That
story.
was so that was where that was the first payment to our Roth.
Yep.
So when I had to buy a new car, I got rear-ended. The dude that hit me was drunk. So
Mhm.
I got a little, not retirement money. I got enough money to pay off my truck. Basically, that's what I
Yep.
did. So I bought a new car, made payments on it for a year. I didn't have a car payment for like 3 years up to that point. So I really enjoyed not having a car payment.
Yeah.
So I got that check, and first thing I did was pay the truck off, and then I had a little extra, and I think I had about 1,500 bucks on a credit card, so I paid that off, and then I took the other. I think I had 4 grand left, and I put 2 grand in Tiffany's Roth and 2 grand in my Roth, and that's where we started.
Amazing.
Was 2K up, and then we just Tiffany's a really, and she'll admit this. I'm not saying anything she won't or she'll disagree with. She's really big on relinquishing or on control, and it was really hard for her to relinquish. So when we were to the point of automation, she didn't want to do it. And finally, I just said, "Hey, kind of like the Philadelphia 76ers, like trust the process. Like you got to trust the
Yep.
process." And she did. And it wasn't all at once. It was one thing here, one thing here, one thing here.
Sure.
But slowly, it got to where our bills are all automated. And, there was some fine, honestly, the calendar you posted where it's like the literal squares of the date and on the
Yep.
first, this mortgage, and then these bills on this day, that really helped her like visualize and get it out. So then it got her to a comfort level. And
That's
then
awesome.
once we got to to the retirement piece, I set it all up to where, and we're still, we just crossed over to where we're over 3 grand we're not in VT6, we're in, is it
BTI.
VTI? Yeah.
Yep.
So we're just over enough, to put those into
Amazing.
indices, I guess. So that's cool. The other ones are still ETFs. So, I still make those. I physically or manually do those each paycheck, but the money comes in, money goes over there. So all I have to do is log in to Vanguard and do that. And there's our emergency savings is, we were at 3 months. And I was going to get to this. She had a little medical thing in November. It wasn't life threatening, but it was kind of time sensitive.
Mhm.
Like we needed to do it within about a week or two. And she was like, "What are we going to do?" And it was cool because she still was thinking individually of how is she going to pay for this? And I said, "Hey, we're not doing that. Like we're in this together, right? It's we.
We're a team.
We had zero debt. So I was like, look, we knew she had a $5,000 stipend coming in December. This is the last year we're probably going to get a tax return. And then I get my bonus in March. And I'm like, look, we have breathing room. We can put this on a credit card today. Your bonus comes next month. We took money from that. We took money from our emergency fund, and it's almost all but paid down to, it was like 7 grand just like that, and now it's down to two, and I know that's going to be paid off next month. So it's like,
That's incredible. It's
we
just
didn't
like
have the
the
cash to do it at the
flexibility you
minute.
have. It's such a big event. Like
Yeah,
I,
it's
I
breathing
know the
room.
medical world all too well.
Yeah, I know you do.
It's like it's if you are able to handle stuff like that, it takes so much emotional burden off because it's already an emotional process, right? Like you have to deal with a lot from an emotional standpoint just to deal with the medical stuff itself. Then you add money on it, it's like it's a total disaster. And then it becomes just a hodgepodge of like, I'm just gonna go into debt because I can't, all these little things in your mind start flying. That's incredible. That's a really, really, really cool thing I heard.
Yeah, just the breathing room. And the we have a few we don't have many rules, but one rule is we can adjust the savings part. We do not miss retirement. Like I told
Love
her
it.
that over and over. You do not miss retirement payments. I don't care what happens. And we've been paying a couple $100 extra on our principal each month, and we've been
Yep.
doing that we started doing that before we got to you. So now we've done it so long, it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like
Love it.
we just pay extra on the principal every month, and that's it.
You mentioned she was step by step. Like it wasn't all in for her. That wasn't her approach. She was doing one little thing. Okay, we can relinquish a little bit of control from the automations and stuff like that. Was it just time that helped her in access or let's call it like the education or being able to see, okay, this worked, so now I have more trust that this will work. How did that kind of play out real time?
I think it was just experiencing it a little bit at a time. And I honestly, I think she even said this to me once. She had a moment where she looked up and thought, "Oh, damn, I have to pay this." And then she looked and was like, "Oh, that's coming out tomorrow. Never mind."
Oh,
Like,
that's awesome.
so it was, thinking in her head because she'd done it so long, "Oh, we have to pay this and this by tomorrow." And then looked over and was like, "Oh, it's auto drafted. Okay. Like we're
Yeah.
good."
Does she
Um,
does she mention like the stress release from that? Because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like if I had to think about, I try to minimize like what I have to think about, like the clothes I wear and like the money decisions. If I can automate or simplify my life, I do. And this just goes way past money. Do you feel as if her stress has gone down as a result of not having to think about that? She's trained her mind so long now she can take that out and focus on other higher lever activities.
I think so for sure. It definitely takes just a little bit off the plate,
Yeah,
just one or
yeah,
two little things at a time. That when you think about them, they're not really big, but
right.
combined all together, it takes, it adds
Oh
up to be
yeah,
a lot. You're like, damn, I have to be, and Christmas is coming up and birthday's coming up. And, it's just
yep.
a few less things you have to deal with or worry about.
100%
Um,
agree. So when you first said you were sitting in Florida, you were talking to your parents, and you were like really wanting to do this. What was you had skepticism naturally. I mean, any normal person would have skepticism. I found you on IG. Your name's Budget Dog, and I have no idea who you are. What was that skepticism? How'd you get over that?
I don't know if you remember, you and I messaged back and forth for I'd say a couple weeks.
Yep.
And at one, I was trying to be cognizant of like, man, I don't want this dude to like, if this all is all legit, I don't want him to be like, man, look, guy, you're asking me all these dumb questions.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wanted to find out,
Sure.
and you answered everything that I asked pretty fast, pretty quickly. And I was like, all right, well, this dude seems like, they know what they're talking about. He's responsive. So, um, I think it was in, and I knew we had the money to do it, and I was just like, I felt like it was a little bit of a gamble. And once we got
Sure.
in, and then we met with Tom before we signed up officially, um, and I was like, okay, I think they're legit now. And then we just, we did it. And so she's not in the classroom anymore, but she's an administrator, but she's in the school system, teacher, we'll call it.
Yep. Yep.
So I think we signed up in July. So I knew she had another 6 weeks of uninterruption other than our son, that she could focus on it. So
Perfect timing.
yeah, it was. Um, it kind of worked out, and I'm glad that we did. 100% glad we did it. Like just to say I'm glad is an understatement, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not only now um, we have a taxable brokerage account for the second home we want to purchase. Now, granted, we're
Love
a few
it.
years away from that, but
Yep.
that's an account to where whenever I get my bonus and we do what we're going to do with it, the rest of it's going in there. And that's
So
just a
cool.
place to park it for, and we've got 4 or 5 years before we get to that point. And,
Exactly.
if I can put 10, 12 grand in there a year and just let it sit, then, look where we are now. Our son has a taxable brokerage, our parent taxable brokerage
Amazing,
that he
amazing. So
doesn't
he's
know
got
about.
investments too.
Yeah, and and I took what I did was because of this, it made me look at things, and you see people say, well, why do you get a tax return when, the government doesn't give you interest on that money? So I adjusted, my W-4 down, and I took the difference and put some into my 401k, some into his 529 that we're doing, and then the rest into his little taxable brokerage. So, and it's not going
Incredible.
to be a ton of money, but I figured by
It's a
the time he's
difference.
20,
It is different.
by the time he's 20, it could be 22, 23 grand in it, and
So
that's
cool.
right now. That's not counting any future promotion or increase in salary. That's just right now. So
That's so cool. And what would you tell somebody sitting? Let's call yourself seven. I don't know, 8, 9 months ago at this point in time. What would you say to that person? Let's call it Aaron and Tiffany 8 months ago. Somebody sitting on the sideline, want to join, don't know. They're kind of skeptical. What would you tell that individual?
just think that whether you have whatever your knowledge of finances are, whether they're zero or, like myself, I would consider, yeah, a good, strong base, kind of mediocre. Know a lot of things that I don't know. I know there are things that I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, you can find anything in the school platform or on Budget Dog. I mean, you cover everything. Like you cover absolutely everything from basic budgeting, which we still didn't do. As I say, oh, I had this knowledge, but we still weren't budgeting, and
Sure.
that covered a lot of bases for us and let us get out of a kind of a just a blind position we were in, to trusts and retirement and financial planning for your kids, insurance. Like you cover everything.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely fabulous to the point of where, like, not only do we don't have our trust in place yet, but we're going to do that like next month, to where we're telling our parents, hey, don't do a will. That's cool, but like you need to be in a trust.
Yes.
And I told my mom if she set it up, I'd pay for it. Like just because
Amazing.
my brother and sister and I mean, my mom has a house in Florida, and I'm like, a lot of kids are reselling their parents' homes these days, but we're like, hey, that it's in Destin, like it's a vacation place. Like I don't know if we want to sell that. Like
100%.
let's put it in the trust. So we
Put
don't
in the
have to deal with
trust,
probate
step up in
and
basis. Like there's so much potential there.
yeah, and then also all the experts you have on, everybody you guys interview on Mondays. I love Mark Kohler. Like I see Mark maybe could rub some people the wrong way. I love
Oh
him. I think that dude's
yeah.
awesome.
He's
But
great.
even just your regular Monday speakers. I can't remember the girl's name you had on the last, not this week, but the Monday before, talking about.
Victoria?
Yes,
Yeah, Victoria
she was
Wealth
awesome,
Transfers.
man. And it
Great.
happened to where I looked down at my phone and I was like, oh, I can go to this. I can go to this Zoom, and I was so glad I did, man, because she
Yeah.
had a ton of knowledge.
Yeah.
You cover parents, you cover kids, you cover anything you need to know about yourself. So the wealth of knowledge that you guys have compiled is pretty incredible. Like it covers everything.
Awesome,
And
man.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and just you can type in any search word and
It pops.
15 things will pop up, and I remember things we did during the program, like, yes, no, that's not it. There it is, right
Yep.
there. And other stuff that you covered before we got there, and it's still right there for us to view it.
It's interesting you said like, hey, I thought I was budgeting correctly, and then I came in, I was like, we weren't. And so like I think that happens a lot. Everyone's like they make assumptions that they know X, Y, and Z, but they need to know X other, A, B, and C. And then they get into a legitimate program or a legitimate fund, education program, and they're like, oh, wait, I missed this, and that. And that's probably actually why I'm falling short a little bit. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned that. That's very empowering. What were the biggest things that you were like shocked by when you saw? Like as far as like insurances, estate planning, like what were those things that are like, wow, like if I would have known this 10 years earlier, that would have been incredible.
Well, the trust and estate planning part really, was that was new to me. I'll be honest. I didn't have a lot of
Yep.
knowledge on that. And then it was eye opening to see, oh, we should probably be doing this instead of just a regular will.
Yep.
That was really eye opening. Now, the thing that kind of kicked myself was, I mean, you drill it over
I
and
know
over and
what's
over
coming.
about time, time, like basically
Yep.
time. And I remember coming out of high school, I was like, okay, I need to do this like soon because this time is important, and I'm 19, 20 years old. Due to life, I flattened I don't want to say flattened because there wasn't a ton of money in it in the first place, but when I was 24, I changed careers, moved states, and flattened 10 grand I had in a 401k at 24.
Yep.
Um, at the time I needed it. But then I went back and did it again when I changed jobs again and moved again. So I've dropped two 401ks from 10 grand to zero. And once at the current, at my job now, I started when I was 31. So I can't get back those 7, 8 years, which at the time, like I'm not really beating myself up that much. It was
Sure.
what it is, and life is life. But the time factor, man, and not starting the Roth earlier, I wish I'd have done that because
Yep.
that's a game changer for sure. That's why I'm trying to get. I can't wait for my son. He's 6, so as
Crazy.
soon as he goes to
Crazy.
work, as soon as he works, and as soon as he brings that first paycheck home, it's like, hey, you're starting a Roth.
Right to the Roth. Yeah. Man,
Yep,
I
and
wish I would
which is cool
I
because
told
we
my
didn't do that.
I brought this up a few times. If I would have done that at 16 when I made money, and I didn't know this before because I wasn't educated myself, I would have had $1 million more net worth at this point in time. Like it's crazy to
Yeah,
think about how big of a substantial difference it would have been if it was just sitting in this account versus this account, not doing anything different, technically speaking. One's growing, one's not. But like you don't really, from your perspective, do anything different. But that would have been $1 million different. So the 6-year-old is going to be head and shoulders above their peers.
yeah. And I see everything you post, with your kids, and I'm just like, well, he started when they were born, so he's got
Yep.
about 6 years on me. But you know what I mean. At
Yep.
that point, it's not going to matter to him because, like you said, we weren't educated, but at the same time, my parents weren't either about,
Exactly.
hey, you should do this maybe with your money. And then 16 years old with a Roth IRA, that life
Yep.
might look a little bit different.
Oh yeah. And your parents do the best job they possibly can. Maybe finance weren't
Sure.
their thing, and same with mine, right? And we always had to, I believe, improve upon what our parents gave us and handed down. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you want to edit this back into the why would we join part. It's something I didn't mention. I know you and I've
Oh,
talked about this before, but money was such a hot topic with us for such a long time. And my wife hated talking about it. I hated bringing it up because of where it led to.
sure.
And don't get me wrong, we have budget meetings basically every 2 weeks, like just Sunday afternoon, 30 minutes, kind of a mid-month check-in, and
Hmm.
then a look forward to the next month. And there are still times where Tiff will stomp her heels, and I don't want to do it, but
Yep.
she still does, and she's a good sport about it. But I guess the point of me saying all that is that it got us to a point where we could communicate with each other about it and what's coming up in the next month. And hey, what are we doing? Where do we stand on this? I love the balance sheet thing. Like I love it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
she doesn't quite understand it, but when I show it to her, like, hey, we started 6 months ago here, and then now here we are, and this is where we're at. And
Yep.
her eyes kind of get big, like, oh, and then the light bulb goes off. So it was such a beat down for us for a long time to talk about money, and here we are where we're having biweekly budget meetings.
That's
They're
incredible.
not long or in
Sure.
depth, but it's
Yeah.
just keeping us on the same page together. And we were never there ever. So this has gotten
That's
us to where we
so
can at least
awesome.
talk and be on the same page. What I mean? We're gonna have married couples discussions on why you went to the Dollar Tree 3 times last week, but
Well,
it was in
that
her budget. Like it has a line
yeah.
item. So, like, how mad can I really get?
Man, that's incredible to hear. I mean, it really is. I mean, like you said, they don't have to be long. They don't have to be like in depth, like sit down meeting with notebooks out and stuff like that. It's more just like a quick conversation when I say meeting per se, you know. But it's
Mhm.
so powerful because you're communicating on a deeper level about your relationship and what your goals are and stuff like that, and it improves that side of it, which we don't. I don't claim to be a marriage expert, but I can tell you more communication with your spouse is probably better.
Right.
So
So this will work absolutely if you're single and you don't have, that other person to ping it off of. But if you are, a married couple and this is an issue, which it absolutely was for us, Budget Dog helped us get to a better place. Like it's simplest way to put it. It helped us get to a better place as a couple as far as finances go.
awesome to hear, man. Well, hey, I'm proud of you first off.